Hello and welcome to this James Bike Guy, where today we're taking a look at the Salsa Journeyer. This Journeyer is the 650B variant with Shimano's GRX 600. And in this video, we're going to go into the features and designs of this bike, talk about who and what it's for, and how it might compare to, say, the more popular Trek Checkpoint. So go ahead, stick around, and let's check it out. The Salsa Journeyer is Salsa's aluminum, gravel, and all-road road bike. Now this is really designed to be a bike that can really do just about everything, and in fact comes in 4 main types. Now all of them are going to have the same 6061 T6 aluminum frame. All of them are going to offer things like internal cable routing, this carbon fiber wax wing front fork, through axles both on the front and the rear, as well as a threaded bottom bracket, 27.2 millimeter seat post that is capable of accepting a dropper, and a whole ton of mounts. But before we get into the mounts and kind of some of that fun stuff, the 4 different flavors that this bike comes in really comes down to handlebar setup and wheel setup. So this bike in front of us has the drop handlebars. So this has a road bike, or in this case, a gravel bike style handlebar. This is the cow chipper handlebar from Salsa. It's got a nice wide stance to it. If you can see, the lower part of the bar is flared out, which means your hands kind of get into this nice comfy position as you're riding, not going to run into the bend of the bar. It does have kind of a medium length reach out to these GRX hydraulic brakes and mechanical shifting. But the bike also comes in a flat bar version, which is really more of, say, what you would use if you were commuting on the bike, using it as a hybrid bike, or even if you wanted that mountain bike position when going on a gravel adventure. The other place that gets changed up between these bikes, well, that's going to be in the tires. This particular one is rocking the Terravale tires in a 650 by 47 millimeter. So 650B is a mountain bike tire diameter size. 47 millimeters is nice and healthy. And this can run up to a 50 millimeter tire in the frame. But they also sell this bike in a 700C variant. So that has the larger diameter road bike wheels with a slightly smaller sidewall height to the tire. So the tire height isn't quite as tall and chunky, which means it's going to roll a little bit faster, but won't necessarily have the same comfort or off-road chops. But that bike in a 700C wheel size can run everywhere from a 32 millimeter tire all the way up to a 50 millimeter tire. Now, both the handlebars and the tires can all be combined between the different models, which means in a drop bar format, you can get in that 650 or 700C size. And on the flip side, you can get both wheel sizes in the handlebar design. So that gives you a lot of room for adjustment, or better yet, you can buy it exactly the way you want. Now, because the frame is the same on all of those, you can indeed adjust the bike, get the exact setup that you want. But it's cool that you can go right in to the bike shop and get it with the tire size and the handlebar size that you'd like. Now, because this bike is really a do-all adventure, it does have a ton of those mounts. And you might even call it, say, all the mounts. You've got a top tube mount here. You've got in the down tube both a upper water bottle mount, a triplicate mount down here, so you can run a frame bag inside of the bike if you wanted. You also have the water bottle mount height that you can adjust, or add one of those cargo containers. Out back, you've got a triplicate mount on the seat tube, and that's going to allow us to go to the rear end where you have fender mounts and rack mounts. So you can run a rack out back, an aluminum seat post, which means you could actually run a mount off of that if you wanted to. And up front, that wax wing fork, even though it's carbon, still fits fenders and has that triplicate mount on the bike as well. Nice to see down there. Yeah, cool little feature, having the internal hydraulic cable routing. Now, with all of those additional rack mounts, you'd kind of start to wonder, well, does it have the gearing and the carrying capacity to carry all that gear. And your legs, of course, are going to be the final determinant, but the frame has a max rider and cargo weight capacity of 300 pounds, which is a pretty substantial amount of weight that you could carry with the bike. And from a drivetrain perspective, this is Shimano's GRX 600. So the 600 series has a mechanical shifting rear derailleur, which is going through this 11-speed cassette. As you go up front, we've got a double up front. This bike is, of course, available with one-by drivetrains if that was kind of your thing. But here, with an 11 to 34 tooth out back and a front chainring combination of 30 to 46 teeth, that means we're going to have a super wide range and much lower than a 1-to-1 gear ratio. With a 30 up front and a 34, you've got 4 teeth lower than a 1-to-1, and that 46 in this subcompact is still going to be able to spin the gears fast enough with that 11 tooth out back. Now, if speed on the road was something that you were most concerned about, I'd highly recommend looking at this bike and say the 700C wheel size, because that 700C wheel size is definitely going to give you a little bit more top end with the larger outside rolling diameter, especially if you were running it, say, with those 700s by 40 millimeter tires on the bike. It would work out pretty nice. Of course, the braking on this is Shimano's GRX hydraulic disc brakes, which means a 2-piston caliper on the front and the rear, clamping down on 160 millimeter rotors that are attached to these Shimano hubs via a center lock disc brake mount. Cockpit, all Salsa. We talked about the handlebars earlier, but it is Salsa stem, Salsa handlebar. Both are aluminum. Out back is a WTB Volt saddle mounted up on that alloy seat post with a really traditional seat clamp. From a geometry perspective, if we were to compare this to the Checkpoint, which is an aluminum gravel bike from Trek, what we're seeing here is this bike in a size 57 centimeter, which is important to note because instead of the standard 54, 56, 58, Salsa is going 53, 55 centimeter, and 57. But the 57 is most closely aligned in size to the 58 from Trek. And this Salsa has a stack of 598 millimeters, a reach of 387, a chainstay length of 440 millimeters, and a seat angle at 73 degrees with the head tube at 69.5. Now, what that really means is this bike is going to be about 11 millimeters shorter in stack height, so a little bit lower than the equivalent Trek. It's also quite a bit shorter in reach, so you're a little lower and you're a little further back with 24 millimeters less reach. But you do have a chainstay that's going to be a bit more stable with 5 additional millimeters in length and a head tube angle that is substantially slacker than what you get on the Trek. And what that really means to me is this bike is prioritizing both that load capacity and the capability of the bike once it goes off-road, whereas the Trek certainly is erring a bit more on its higher speed type activities rather than load capacity. Well, anyways, now that we've taken a look at this bike, let's go ahead and find out what it weighs. The actual weight of the Salsa Journeyer comes in and weighs 24.1 pounds in a size 57. Thanks for joining me to check out the Salsa Journeyer GRX 600. Go ahead and let me know your thoughts on this neon yellow bike. The color is quite bright and you'll definitely be noticed, but past that, I'm curious to hear what else you have to say on this aluminum bike and which of the 4 combinations would you want to have it in.